Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul, and I am the infrastructure nerd. And you are, at this very moment, participating in the October 2013 Tabs 3 Virtual User Group meeting. Today we have two topics, as usual. We're going to talk about payroll integration. We're not really going to look at payroll itself. That's not something that we have anything to do with, but we do integrate with a payroll package for General Ledger to pull those entries in, and we also can use that same mechanism to pull in data from a payroll processor. So we're going to take a look at that and take a look at how that's done and what your options are. We're also going to look at sending statements to more than one person using both emailed statements and mailed statements. We're going to look at a special trick that may or may not be something that you know about to send emailed statements to more than two people, and more on that in a minute as we get to it. I am also without Mary Jo today. She is on vacation. I don't ever get those, so, or at least I have to schedule mine around the virtual user group meetings. But Mary Jo, some of you may know this, some of you may not, she is a quilter. And not only is she a quilter, but she has a little online quilt store called thequiltbear.com. And so she's at a quilting convention, not just for quilters, but for people that sell quilting things. And so she is there until she'll be back Wednesday. And I'll tell you, I cannot wait for her to come back. Not that I don't like helping people. It's just that I feel a little overwhelmed when I have to do it. Mary Jo makes it look so easy. So today we have our humble moderator, Leanne, who will be answering questions, or, well, at least getting questions answered for people and making sure that everybody has the information they need. And to that end, this is the GoToWebinar control panel, which, if you are looking at this, means you have not collapsed it, which means it may be covering up part of my screen. It may not. It has to do with how big your screen is and how much room you have. But if it is covering up my screen and you can't see everything that I'm doing, you can get it out of the way by clicking this button that looks like arrows pointing to the right. You can also, once you've done that, notice that this button that looks like arrows pointing to the right, once collapsed, will look like arrows pointing to the left. And that'll bring it back into focus. So if you're seeing this whole thing, click this button, and this part of it will go away. These buttons here will remain on the very edge of your screen. This one will become an arrow that points to the left. Clicking it again will cause this to come back into focus. If you are shy and you want to ask a question, this is where you do it. You type the question here, being sure to hit the send button. And Leanne, our humble moderator, will, well, she probably won't answer that question, but she'll interrupt me at the right time and at least ask it on your behalf. If you have follow-up questions as you are getting your question answered, just keep typing them and keep remembering to hit send each time that you have a follow-up question. Leanne will continue to monitor this and will continue to ask your follow-up questions on your behalf. And then, of course, when you're done, collapse this back up so you can see everything. If you are not shy, there's a button here that looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upwards in front of it. Click that. You'll be raising your hand. Leanne will notice. She will unmute you. You'll get to ask your question all by yourself. We will leave you unmuted until you are done asking the question and until we are certain that we've got it answered properly. And then we'll get you back to a muted state so you can continue with your lunch if that's what you are doing. So without any further ado, I'm going to switch over to the General Ledger software, and we are going to talk about payroll. Now, there are two ways to integrate payroll with General Ledger, but first a little bit of background. If you have our General Ledger software, it's pretty darn likely that you have tabs, because that's why you would have the General Ledger. You're doing your billing in tabs, and you have our General Ledger software to keep track of your books. And if you have our General Ledger, you probably also have our accounts payable software, because the two together, General Ledger and accounts payable, make up what people think of as accounting software. We also have a module for trust accounting, so if you have a separate trust bank account that you maintain individual people's balances in that trust bank account, you most likely also have that module. But let's talk now just about AP and GL. If you have those packages, you really don't need to do anything else accounting-wise, because all the checks that you write come from AP. They go over to GL. When you write those checks, they go over to GL automatically, with you having the option to make changes, but most often you're just letting them flow through to GL. And you also can post those checks that you're writing into the billing system to appear on a client statement at exactly the same time that you're writing the check. So everything happens at once. And of course, when you log those payments in the billing system to reduce the client's bill, it is also pushing that over to GL automatically. Now, if you don't have that happening, but you do have AP and GL, then you don't have your integration set on, or you do have it on and it's not set up right. So that's another issue, and there's several resources on our website and our virtual user group meeting, and I believe we've also done a couple of webinars about it that were not virtual user group meetings per se. So be sure to check that out. At the end, we'll try and remember to show you where to go on the website to look for past virtual user group meetings and other recordings that we have. But today we're talking about payroll. Payroll is about the only thing that people would do that might not be coming from accounts payable. We do have a few clients that will figure out their payroll manually and then key it into accounts payable to print people's paychecks, but that's very, very rare, because payroll is in and of itself an art form, if you will, a little bit black magic, a little bit art, and there are packages out there to do payroll. Now, we integrate with one of them, but more often than not, people aren't even doing that. They are simply sending their payroll data to a payroll processing service, Paychecks, ADP. There are quite a few of them. Maybe your accountant's even doing them for you, but most often people are sending them to a service. They are using that service to figure out and do all the things necessary with the withholding taxes and the tax payments that the firm must make into those withholding accounts. All that stuff is happening automatically because of the payroll service. Now, because of that, that information needs to make it into general ledger. So if we go into journal entries and you are someone who's using payroll, you've probably seen this screen, because in order to get that information into general ledger, you get a report from your payroll service, you get something from your accountant, or perhaps you're using QuickBooks or QuickPay. I believe they used to call it, I think it's part of QuickBooks now, but maybe you're using QuickBooks to do your payroll. And so you need to come in and manually make journal entries. Now, I'm not going to go into a great bit of detail about how to make these journal entries. That's something that's training oriented, and it really varies from firm to firm depending on how the books are set up. However, this is where you would come to make those manual journal entries. So if you're doing that now, if you have payroll and it's outsourced somehow to QuickBooks, to another piece of payroll software, to a service, you are coming in and doing this manually. So you're putting in an entry to show the net check, and you're putting in other entries that show part of it going to this account, part of it going to that account, part of it going to another account, withholding, FICA, FUTA, all that stuff, okay? This is where you go to do that, and each screen represents a different line item in the payroll entry for a single person. Now, if you have a payroll for 12 people, you have many, many different lines of entry, because each individual person has their own FUTA and FICA and salary expense and Medicaid and all the different things, Social Security, all the different deductions that you're needing to track. So it can get to be a very, very long journal entry, if you will. Many different screens all really being combined into one journal entry. We can show you how to do that. If you're already doing it, you already know how to do it, but it's cumbersome. So what we're going to look at then instead is that we do have on the screen here, in the integration section, we have two places where we can pull payroll data in from extraneous sources. Now, again, they don't look much different. When you go into these screens, you tell it where the data is that's being pulled in by pointing to it. You tell it which journal, and you say OK, and it pulls everything in and tells you, hopefully, that everything's in balance and that there are no errors. Of course, once you get this going and once you get it set up, that's pretty much the way it's going to work. The same thing is true if you're pulling it from Pensoft, or if you're pulling it from just a plain ASCII data file. ASCII is a nerd term that simply means a text file, a CSV file they're sometimes referred to as. And you'll see the same sort of screen. You select the file, wherever it may be on your S drive and in a certain directory, wherever you put it when you got it, either from the payroll package or from the payroll service, and which journal it goes into. Now, for those of you that may want to try and get your payroll processor to do this for you, if you come in here, and I'm going to go back out and show you how I got in here, if you are in GL on the main tab in the task folders and you click on integration and then go into post ASCII data, that's what I mean when I say go in there. If you get in here and press the yellow question mark, which is the context sensitive help button, meaning it's help that is specific to the place that you are, you will get to this screen. And from this screen, not only can you see what there is to see about how this works, but you can also click this link right here, and it will give you the exact layout of the file so that you can work with your payroll processor to get them to produce a file every time they do payroll for you that gives line items for each, what would be a journal entry, line items for each line of the journal entry to represent the different things that you are probably entering manually now. So bottom line, we can train, if you will, and I'm doing the quote thing in the air, you can't see me, but I am, we can train your payroll processor to produce this file for you so that you can then simply run this routine where you point to the file, probably journal number 1 is probably the one you want, hit OK, and have it pull in without you having to make those manual entries. Now the same thing is what's going to happen if you use Pensoft Payroll. You still point to the file, specify the journal, and pull it in, but the assumption is that you're running the payroll in this piece of software called Pensoft. So a little bit about Pensoft before we close this topic. I'm going to go over to their website. It's pensoft.com, www.pensoft.com. They have payroll software. So if you look under products and services and payroll software, I think the best place to look is features because it kind of gives you all the different versions. You need this one. Now, you may need this one if you're a big firm, but you cannot use the light version. Now, the only reason that I point that out is because sometimes people want to buy this one or this one or this one or this one when they don't need it. They are significantly more expensive. The only difference, you would ever go to anything but the standard version, which handles up to 100 employees, is if you have more than that. If you have somewhere between 101 and 250 employees, you do need this version. And if you have more than 250 employees, you may need that version. It's kind of unlikely that if you have more than 500 employees, you're using tabs, but you get the picture. There are other things that you get with this payroll software. Not many of them have anything to do with what you would need to do. So the bottom line is, if you get the standard version from Pensoft, it's very likely, unless you're a big firm, that that's going to handle all the employees that you have, and it's going to cost $369. Now, you do need to renew this software every year. It doesn't cost, I don't think it's the $369 again, but it's not much less. If it is less, it's going to be $20, $30, $40, $50 less to renew it each year. So to summarize, your options for doing payroll and having it automatically pull into General Ledger involve either using Pensoft and using their standard, or if you have a large number of employees, their professional or pro versions, renewing it every year, and then using these routines here on the integration screen within GL to pull in the Pensoft data. If instead you're using a service, you can still pull in their data if you can get them to put it out in this format. We have gotten both Paychex and ADP to do this for clients. We have also run into situations where ADP in Toledo is very good at it, and ADP in Chicago, it's like fighting tooth and nail to get them to do it right. Really has a lot to do with, I guess, the reps, the people that are working there. So if you have trouble, we can intervene on your behalf and kind of step in the middle and say, hey, this is what you need to be providing this client so that they can pull the data into their general ledger system. Leanne has a question, I believe.
Colleen wants to know, what about Sage Payroll from DeckEasy?
DeckEasy. The only payroll package that we integrate directly with is Pensoft. If you can get DeckEasy to put out your payroll data in this format, right here, with these fields represented in this order and with these specifications, then you can use the ASCII file import to pull it in from DeckEasy. That is strictly up to the software. It could be any other payroll software. If it can put it out in this format, we can pull it in. My recommendation is if you're looking for a payroll package, get Pensoft. It just plain works. We have several clients that are using it. They're very happy with it. But if you have something like DeckEasy and you don't want to get rid of it, obviously, because you've made the investment, then one option is to look at whether or not it can put its data out in this ASCII file format. That I'm confident that it probably can put it out. It's a matter of whether it can be structured in this exact order, fitting these exact specs. Any more questions, Leanne?
No more questions.
Okay, thank you. And so if you do think of a question, at the end there will be my email address on the screen. You can always email me. Or if you are live, I guess if you're really here on this Monday, you can email me at paul.purdue, like the school, not the chicken, Purdue @attorneycomputersystems.com. And later on, we'll look at how to get to the recorded version so that you can see that email address in the final production copy and also come back and review these things without having to take notes. Now, let's move on. Let's move to tabs. The other topic for today was how to send statements to more than one person. And that's kind of a loaded statement because right now, you can send statements to one or two people. And I'm going to show you a little trick that you can perhaps use to send statements via email to more than two people when the need arises, but it's kind of a workaround. Now, I'm also going to tell you about wishlist at tabs3.com. There I did, because we think that you should immediately turn around and write an email and say, hey, we need to send statements or have the ability to send statements to more than two people. It's kind of a teaser. I'm going to take you in there and show you what I mean. I'm going to go into the client file. Well, it wants me out of here. There we go. Now I'm going to go back to tabs and go into the client file. And I'm going to go to the billing preferences screen, and this is where you select statement delivery options. Now what happens is when you set up this matter and tell it who the client is, and I'm going to move to like Michael Larson instead. Oops. And we'll choose his Larson versus Belcourt case. When you set up this client, you tell it this matter here, right here, you set it up to be for this client and this particular contact. Now, they happen to be the same here because it's an individual. But if it were something like due to Mega Construction Corporation, you've got a company here and an individual contact here. Now, since I know that Michael Larson is set up the way I want him for this particular purpose, I'm going to go back to him, and we're going to go over to billing preferences. So therefore, this first entry here, which I will now edit, on the billing preferences screen under statement delivery options is defaulting to sending the bill to Michael Larson. Now I can change that. I can say, well, Michael Larson's the contact and the company is whatever, but I can say I want the regular bill, the main bill, to go to somebody different. That's kind of unusual that you would do that. Instead, what you're doing here is you're specifying that you want both mailed and emailed, or that you want just emailed, or that you want just mailed, and whether or not you want the intention line, and things like that, okay? Where it gets into the ability to send multiples is that you can add here. So we'll say we also want this bill to go to Gary Lacey, whoever he is, and then we might put a description, copy to Gary, maybe he's the CEO of the company. We can define that we want statements mailed, emailed, or both. If you choose only email, then you have the option to define how you want the bill to be set up. If it's mailed, you're going to get the bill to's name and address on the statement because it's going to go to this person's name and address. If it's emailed, you can say, no, put the client's name and address and then use a different attention line to say that it's going to Gary Lacey, but it's going to Gary Lacey at the client's address. So a little confusing there. These options here only show up if it's an email-only statement. As soon as you add the mail option, they go away. You have the ability to define which address it was going to show, whether or not you have an attention line. And if it's email, we choose a different, one of the 3 email addresses, and then we choose something called an email template. But we've had, again, in prior virtual user group meetings, we've talked about emailing statements and how to set up email templates. So if you're not familiar with that concept, go back and review that virtual user group meeting. Again, Leanne, I'm sure, will remind me at the end to show you on the website where to go to find those. Now, here's where it gets to be a little cagey, if you ask me. I'm going to save this. Yeah, I guess I need an email address, so we'll say we're not emailing that. We're just mailing it. Now we've got a bill going to Michael Larson and a bill going to Gary Lacey. You can tell here that they're both being mailed, and only Michael's is also being emailed. And here you have these little, we all know what these are, these hint that you can scroll down or up, right? And you can even click them and they press in. You see that happening? But there's no more add button. It's been grayed out. When version 16 came out, they kind of changed how they did this, and they added this little grid that has these great little up and down arrows so you can scroll through all the different people that are getting the bills, but you can only add 2 just like prior to version 16. So there's a lot more capability built in here. I'll tell you why they did this, just in case you're curious. They needed to add support for emailing statements, which was also introduced in version 16.1. And so they said, hey, we're going to kind of redesign this, and we're going to do it with an eye toward eventually letting the clients, meaning you guys, the customers, send bills to more than 2 people. But right now you can't. So if this is important to you, send an email right now. Well, okay, when we get done, send an email to wishlist@tabs3.com, simply stating that it is important to you that you are able to send bills for the same matter at the same time to more than 2 people. And that's how we get things done. That's how we vote for our need for a certain feature. And if this is important to you, let them know. Now, I promised you kind of a workaround for emailed statements, and we do this for a couple clients. When you set up emailed statements, we'll kind of touch on this topic here, even though I'm telling you that if you want all the details on how to set these up, go back to the prior virtual user group meeting. When we set them up, we go into something called email templates. So if we pull up an email template, like example 2, and well, that's a weird example. We're going to go back here, and we're going to choose example 1. Let's say that this is coming from Jennifer Martin at the demo Data's law firm and her email address. So, and it's going to whoever, and this is how you set up the template. These are how your Tabs software knows how to make the email look, what to put in the body, what to put in the subject. Again, we're not going to go into a lot of detail here. But if I create a one for Michael Larson, and I'm trying to remember how I can do this. If I go here and create a new one and kind of replicate it, Larson M. I can give it a different description. I can go ahead and set it up exactly the same way that I had the other. But under the BCC recipients, we can say when this statement template is used, we want to also BCC this person and this person and this person and this person. We can also set them up as CC recipients. Doesn't matter. Either way is going to achieve this purpose. Now, a couple things to be aware of here. What you're doing in concept, in theory, what you're doing, you're taking the statement template, email statement template that you're already using, and you're replicating it and creating a copy of it. And in that copy, you're saying, we want to also send this statement to this person and this person and this person. So if we wanted to send to Paul at paulpurdue.com and also Leanne at leanne.com, I'm making up these email addresses. These aren't, well, mine is, I suppose. We are simply saying in this statement format template, email statement template, that when this statement format is used, email template is used, we want to also email these people. So we're kind of creating a dummy copy of the real email template that we want to use, and we are telling it, send to these extra people. We then save that. I haven't filled in all the other details, and there is a way. I should have looked at this before. I thought I had this down. There is a way, if you go into Help, to pull up the template you want to use and then simply copy it so that you then have everything all filled in the way you want, except you're going to add these things, okay, these extra recipients. We then go back. Once we've saved that, we go back into the client file, pull up the client, go to the billing preferences, set the main to be emailed, or if it's only the additional that you want emailed, and we use that template. Now, I didn't save it, but it would have been saved as Larson/M. It would show up here, and anything that we set up with this Larson/M would send to those extra people. So we only use this extra template that we're setting up for the people, for the firms, for the bills that are going out to that client. So if Michael Larson has 7 cases and all 7 cases are supposed to get bills sent to these 8 people, and one of them is Michael Larson, we set up the extra template for Michael Larson. We copy the regular one. We set it up specifically for Michael Larson so that those 7 additional email addresses are in the CC line. We set up Michael Larson as the main contact. We use that extra template that we've set up that doesn't appear here, but which would if we'd saved it. And by doing that, we are kind of circumventing the system and being able to email to more than 2 people. Kind of a workaround, kind of cumbersome, because if you make changes to the email template, they won't automatically flow to the ones that you made copies of. But we use this here for a couple clients that need to get bills sent to more than 2 people, and it works very well, and we never change our email template, so it's not a big deal for us. Are there any questions, Leanne?
There are no questions, Paul.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's look at how we get to those recorded versions of our webinars. We're going to go back over here. We're going to go to attorneycomputersystems.com, plural. There's this S on the end. Be careful. attorneycomputersystems.com. It's the same place that you come to register. And in fact, you'll notice that the place that you go to register also has all the prior webinars listed right there. Okay, sorted by date with a short title description and then a little bit longer description of exactly what it is that's covered in that particular episode. Clicking this link right here or this link right here will actually load the YouTube channel that we post these all on and play the specific video at hand. Now keep in mind, if you look over here, there are 3 virtual user group meetings. So if you are currently attending the tab 3 virtual user group meeting, which you are, and you want to learn something from Practice Master, this is where you would go, or World Docs, this is where you would go. Also keep in mind that we also have webinars that we've given on a variety of different topics. The last one was explaining the difference between Platinum and Platinum SQL, and of course the difference between Platinum and the regular multi-user software. We've had them on Practice Master for Marketing, Tabs 3 Integrated Accounting, demonstration of Practice Master. All those are there under Coffee Pot Webinars. Mary Jo has her own little series that we call e-bites. They're very short. They're 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, and they're on a specific little topic, very little topic, like how to use the client manager in tabs. Or here's one on changing your button bar in World Docs. Or here's one, creating a firm vendor to facilitate integration with tabs 3 from the trust accounting system. So those are called e-bites, and we also have something that we call the Paul and Mary Jo Show. My son says, "Really, Dad, the Paul and Mary Jo Show?" Yes, I like it, so it's stuck. And these are a little bit longer. They're maybe 15, 20 minutes long, and we take a topic and go into great detail. So you have all these options available to you on our website. You can see replays of the virtual user group meetings that you may or may not have attended. Maybe you missed one. You can see the Coffee Pot webinars, the e-bites, which are a very short thing that Mary Jo does, and the Paul and Mary Jo Show. Next month, in both the Tabs 3 and Practice Master virtual user group meetings, we will be going over as quickly and yet as completely as possible every single change that's coming in version 17. We have had version 17 here for about 2 months. Some of our clients have had it for anywhere from a week to a month in what they're calling a pre-release mode, which is a euphemism for beta. We anticipate it will be released probably within the month. At the very least, we are now allowed to start talking about it and showing people what it looks like, or we should be by that time in November, the end of the month. So be sure to join us if you want to see what's coming in version 17. And so without any further ado, we are done for the day. Everybody have a good rest of the afternoon, a good week, a good month, and we will see you next month. Thanks much. Bye-bye.